In the summer of 1969, something happened that shook the Soviet Union far more than any bomb ever could. While American astronauts were calmly preparing to land on the moon, deep inside the Kremlin, Soviet engineers, generals, and scientists were staring at their television screens in absolute disbelief. They were not watching a scientific experiment. They were watching the moment their entire worldview collapsed. For more than a decade, Soviet propaganda had told their people that the United States was a decadent, technologically weak nation, held together by money and lies. But on July 20th, when the American spacecraft Eagle descended onto the lunar surface, the Soviet leadership suddenly understood a terrifying truth. If the Americans could do this, if they could guide 3 men across 384,000 kilometers of empty space and place them gently on another world, then they could do anything. And more importantly, they could reach anywhere on Earth. The Saturn V rocket that lifted Apollo 11 into space was not just a launch vehicle. It was a statement of power that no nation in history had ever made before. Standing over 110 meters tall and generating more force than all the engines used in World War II combined, it was the most powerful machine humanity had ever built. Soviet engineers knew exactly what that meant. A rocket capable of sending men to the moon could just as easily deliver nuclear weapons across the planet with terrifying accuracy. For years, the Soviet Union had tried to match American heavy rocket technology, but their designs were unreliable, dangerous, and prone to catastrophic failure. For years, the Soviet Union had tried to match American heavy rocket technology, but their designs were unreliable, dangerous, and prone to catastrophic failure. The Americans, on the other hand, had built a machine so precise and so powerful that it could lift a small city into space and guide it flawlessly toward another world. Watching the Saturn V rise from Florida, Soviet experts did not feel admiration. They felt fear. When Neil Armstrong finally stepped onto the surface of the moon and spoke the words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," the world celebrated. But behind closed doors in Moscow, there was no celebration. There was only silence. Soviet scientists had spent years racing to achieve the same goal, but their program was collapsing under its own weight. Rockets exploded on launch pads. Engineers worked in secrecy and fear. Projects were canceled, restarted, and canceled again. And now, as they watched live images of an American astronaut standing on the moon, they realized they had not just lost a race. They had lost the future. The United States had demonstrated not only superior rockets, but superior computers, superior organization, and superior industrial power. The Apollo guidance computer, though tiny by modern standards, was more advanced than anything the Soviets had been able to mass produce. It could calculate complex trajectories in real time, allowing American astronauts to fly with a level of precision that Soviet spacecraft simply could not match. For the Soviet military, the implications were even more terrifying. The moon landing proved that the United States could coordinate tens of thousands of engineers, millions of parts, and some of the most advanced technology ever created, all without the chaos and secrecy that plagued the communist system. Every bolt, every wire, every line of code in Apollo 11 had worked together as planned. To the Kremlin, this was proof that America was not just rich. It was efficient, disciplined, and frighteningly capable. A nation that could put men on the moon could also build missile systems that could never be stopped. The moon was not the real target that night. The real target was global dominance, and the Soviets knew they were watching it slip away. In the days after the landing, Soviet newspapers tried to downplay the event, suggesting that it was just a propaganda stunt. or that robotic missions were more important. But inside the Soviet space program, morale collapsed. Engineers understood the truth even if they were not allowed to say it out loud. They were years behind, and no amount of propaganda could change that. American factories were producing computers, materials, and engines at a speed and quality the Soviet system simply could not match. The Apollo program was not just a triumph of science. It was a victory of free market industry, open research, and democratic organization over a closed, fearful, and inefficient system. To millions of Americans watching on television, the moon landing was a moment of pride and wonder. But to the Soviet leadership, it was something else entirely. It was a warning, a clear, undeniable message that the United States had become the most technologically powerful nation in human history. The Cold War was still far from over, but one thing was now beyond doubt. The country that could reach the moon had already won the race for the future.